Thanks everyone for having me. I was here, Laura and I were trying to figure out a few years ago, 2018 maybe, when I think I talked about my book at that time. So it's nice to be back and see maybe some familiar faces. Before I start, happy birthday, John. My birthday was just Friday, this past Friday, so go happy birthdays. And also, you're talking about Camp Patterson. I love Camp Patterson. I was there in high school for the Lake Washington band camp that used to run through MSU. And, people joke about band camp, and there's, lots of funny stories about that. But literally, it was just such a highlight of my high school years. And the friends that I shared a cabin with are still friends. So just love it out there. I'm so glad to hear that that's still going strong. But yes, actually, I'm going to stand here for the camera. I do want to talk a little bit about what's going on in MSU with some ideas around storytelling. So I will just begin by saying that we are in the very, very beginning stages. So I don't know exactly how much information I have, but I think this is a good time to share information, especially with all of you who are pretty active in the community, because we have some community partnerships that probably will be part of this. So as Mike said, I am an associate professor in the mass communication department. And so I teach storytelling. I write stories myself. So my stories focus specifically on nonfiction, on journalism, and as Mike mentioned, I started at the Free Press initially as a reporter for a few years. So that's what I do. And at the beginning of the semester, Dean Chris Brown, who I think was here just a few weeks ago talking to all of you, so he's my dean in the College of Arts and Humanities. He pulled me aside and he said, I have this idea. I would love to just see some kind of storytelling group, take off. It would be great if we had, kind of a center with all this great equipment like video cameras and audio equipment and that kind of thing. And so I said, yes, that sounds really great. We've had informal conversations in the past, just among different faculty members in different departments, about working together more, so our students can learn about storytelling and kind of the different forms that that takes. So this was a way to just start to more formally pull this together. And Dean Brown said, let's invite some people from other departments and you can just get started there. So it's myself in Mass Comm, it's a faculty member in the art department who is a photographer. It's a faculty member in English, a faculty member in my department as well, faculty member in music, and a faculty member in communication studies. So what we're all doing is we're all doing storytelling. We're all teaching storytelling. We're all working in some facet of storytelling ourselves. So with Dean Brown, kind of has a bird's eye view of everything. Oh, I think I'm echoing.
That was me. So.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to sign off because I'm causing problems.
I can mute you. Okay, thank you. So what's going on? So Dean Brown has this bird's eye view of the College of Arts and Humanities. So he gets to know each of us faculty members personally, and he gets to see what we do. And so what he said was, you're all doing the same kind of thing, just in different formats. So why don't we pull this together into something a little bit more formalized? So with all the people who are in the storytelling group that we're trying to form and get some ideas out there, we have a photographer, we have a fiction writer, we have a multimedia person, we have somebody who's telling stories through audio, whether that be podcasting or radio. We probably will invite a film professor into this group as well. So we're all approaching this storytelling from different angles. And this is what Dean Brown wanted us to pull together and start talking. So we've only had 3 meetings. We've only been meeting since the beginning of the semester. So our charge is basically just to throw out some ideas. What could this look like? What could this be? Dean Brown's idea is that he really wanted to see some kind of physical space. Like, where could we physically have something that is maybe called the Center for Storytelling, or the Storytelling Institute, or I'm sure we could come up with something more creative as time goes on. But That's kind of what we're calling it for now. You know, we certainly have space on campus. We could do something like this and have the film equipment and audio equipment and that type of thing there. But Dean Brown really wants to see something out in the community, which all of us within this group right now just love this idea. Because what sometimes happens is that the campus community and then the larger community of Mankato don't always get to connect that well. You know, part of it is like just a logistical space issue. You know, if you try to go to MSU, and I know Dave Cowan is here, so you know, there's places to park, right? You know, but there's maybe places to park where you can't park just right outside the building that you're going into. You know, you might have to park and walk, and you know, it's cold and that type of thing. So it's not always the easiest place for our community members to get to. So Dean Brown said, well, if you can think of some ideas where maybe we can actually have this center out in the community somewhere. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Hubbard building. So MSU has some space in the Hubbard building downtown on Riverfront Drive. So I went down there a couple of months ago to visit with our person who's in charge of extended campuses, Dr. Terry Wallace. And I said, Terry, is there some space here that we could use for, you know, a storytelling center? And she said, yes, please use it. That would be great. So on the second floor of that Hubbard building, there's a pretty large space. It's called a flexible classroom. You can move tables around and chairs and that kind of thing. There's a big whiteboard. There's some office space, and there's also a room that even right now is labeled the audio-visual room. So it seems like there would be some opportunities there to actually have the equipment that we would want, whether that be audio equipment or video equipment. To be there in the Hubbard building. And what's really nice about that building is that it is so accessible. You know, there's plenty of parking right in the back, and everything's free, fairly easy to get to. Because the idea here would be that we would want our students to work with community members. What we have on campus are some great resources. We have faculty members who are working in these fields, like professionally, we know how to tell stories. And then we have our students that we're trying to train them in turn to tell stories. And then in the community, we have all of these great stories. Everybody has a great story, but not everybody knows how to tell their story. They don't maybe have the means to write it down or to film it or to capture it on audio or that type of thing. That's what we can do on our end in campus. And if you think about all of the stories that are here in Mankato, from both people who have been around for a long time, maybe decades, and they can really tell us the story of Mankato as a community, what it used to be, how it's grown, those types of things. And then we have a whole set of community members who are brand new to the community and bringing like all of these great ideas and energy into Mankato. So it really becomes this idea of using the resources we have at MSU to tell the story of Mankato, and what does that look like, and who can tell that story. And ideally, these kind of stories would be made public. I mean, of course they would be made public. The problem sometimes with teaching on campus is when we don't have community partnerships, we don't have good projects for our students, you know. It can be hard to get them to work like in real world scenarios where their stuff is actually seen beyond just their classmates and their professors. A really great example, if you saw the free press yesterday in the current section, there were some students of Dave Engens up in the communication studies department, and he's part of our group. So he's teaching them how to tell stories. He's primarily focused on audio, but he's been having them write down stories as well of people that they talk to. So in the current section yesterday, we have an example of students at MSU doing this real work that gets published and gets out there in front of thousands of people. So we see it as really a win-win-win on three different sides. You know, as faculty members, we win because, we actually have like real world situations and real world projects that we can have our students work on. Our students win, obviously, by getting more experience in storytelling and learning to capture the stories of people. And these are students who are going to work in all sorts of fields once they graduate. I mean, maybe they will go into some traditional media like newspapers or online communication or magazines or radio, but so many of them can go into anything. If you think about maybe
where you work, in what ways are stories important? You know, do you have a website? Do you have a blog? Do you have things like that where you're trying to tell your audience what you do? This idea of storytelling can be used in so many different formats. And then the community wins too, both on that personal level, individual community members who get a chance to tell their stories, but the larger community can win too by having that story of here's what's going on in Mankato, here are the people who live in Mankato, here's what they're doing. If that's on a website, or if it's printed somewhere, or it becomes a podcast or something like that, it just really elevates our entire community to let more people know, here's what we're doing here, here's the people who live here, and here's what they do. So we're pretty excited about where this can go. Like I said, we're just really starting out, so not exactly sure what that's going to look like. But I definitely would invite any ideas that you may have. You know, if you personally are interested in something like this, or if you can think about any organization or business that you're involved in that can use, you know, this kind of work, we would be happy to talk and just see if maybe this can go somewhere, and where we can have these really real partnerships with people out in the community. So I think I'll leave it at that in terms of opening it up to all of you for any questions you have or any ideas that you may have. Here's a good opportunity to let me know. Mike.
I'm assuming that you've got the Historical Society involved in this, or will?
We haven't yet, but absolutely, I think that would be what we would want to do, because that's their business, right? It's telling the stories of the community. And I'm a historian as well, with a master's degree in history. So yes, personally, that'd probably be the first place I would go visit. So yes, thank you. Yeah, John?
Your part in your stories for fictional stories or self-fiction?
Yes.
A lot of people in here got good at that.
Absolutely. If somebody can tell tales, you can tell them in all sorts of formats. So yes, one of the faculty members in our group is in the English department. And so in the English department, you know, not only are they writing nonfiction, you know, like the kind of work I do, but yes, fiction, poetry, screenwriting, lots of opportunities to tell stories, and really recognizing how stories can be told in a lot of different formats. And I know, I'm sure many of you are readers, that sometimes it's those fictional works that actually can sometimes get at the truth a little bit more than the nonfiction. Is there a hand? Yes.
How do you help people to write these stories, and then how are they disseminated?
Well, so he asked, how do we help them write stories and how are they disseminated? I think for the latter part of that question, that's remains to be seen. I think there's a lot of different forms that could take. It could actually be published, you know, something could be published, whether it's print or online. But if somebody had a story, you know, let's say you came in and you said, I want to tell my story, I want somebody to capture it. Would a class, you know, write it up? Would they record you audio? Would they film you? You know, there's a lot of different ways that they could do that, and a lot of different ways then that could be out there in the public. Maybe it's someplace on the web, or like I said, maybe it's something that's published down the road. Yes.
I'm reading a book right now, and it's just a wonderful, enjoying it so much. But the book has its origins in a college assignment to the author to go out and interview someone regarding their life. And it happens to be associated with the London Blitz during the 1940s. But she weaves this true story into a fictional account based on the history, and it turned out beautiful. I'm sure that's something that could work into your program.
It certainly could. What's the name of the book? It sounds fascinating.
Secrets of a Charmed Life by Susan Weiss. It's just a wonderful.
Secrets of a Charmed Life. Okay, I'm gonna remember that. I'm always looking for
I
good.
have it written down, I'll give it to you.
Okay, thank you. Always looking for good recommendations. Well, that's the thing too. That's why I just feel like the possibilities are endless of what form that these stories could take. And sure, maybe there's some enterprising student out there, you know, who's talking to somebody in the course of an assignment and recognizes, you know, like, actually, I think this could make a good novel or something like that, or a good film.
Who knows? Who knows where something like that could land? Yes.
Apologize if I missed it. What about from a music perspective?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Indeed, we do have a music professor in our group. And so as you know, stories through song, right? I mean, that's just been part of human history as people have told stories through song. So that's one piece of it, just within that musical field, certainly you'd be telling stories. But this is where that interdisciplinary approach really comes into play too, because if you think about the partnerships that musicians have with filmmakers and how huge of a role music plays in film, whether it's a drama or whether it's a documentary, you know, the music sets the mood too. So I can really see our music students working with maybe our film students or working with our audio students, working really closely together to kind of create this whole package of both story and music where the two work together really closely. And that was just really also a big reason why we wanted to do something like this, were those interdisciplinary type of efforts, because when our small group got together to really talk about, okay, what are we doing? You know, what are we teaching? It's like we were teaching these same things, but in our little silos. And so if you think of giving music students this opportunity to work with filmmakers or to work with audio producers and creating kind of this entire package together, that learning just becomes so much more exponential versus just keeping it, you know, in your little narrow path. It becomes so much richer when you can work together.
What about from a business and marketing standpoint?
That's a good question too.
Combine those.
Absolutely. We love the marketing department. We love those marketing students. I can see down the road, you know, as we get kind of more of the creative side, more formed and set, and we're doing these projects, I can see absolutely then pairing with the College of Business, specifically the marketing students. Okay, here we have this product, you know, we have this film or this book or something like this. How do we market it? How do we find that audience? How do we take care of that business side of things? Yeah, I can see this partnership just really growing to include lots of different people.
Are you aware of any other colleges or universities that are doing the same thing?
Yes, that's a really good question. There are. So if you just do an internet search for storytelling centers or something like that, specifically to EDU, you will see it. One of the most well-known ones is at Duke University. I think they're called the Center for Documentary or something like that. But so they really focus hugely on documentary. They focus on audio podcasting. The professor I mentioned before, Dave Engen from the Communication Studies Department, has actually gone there for summer workshops, but they have that huge community component. And so when we do talk about something like this at MSU, we are thinking about who's done this before, and are there some models that we can follow, and there certainly are.
And of course, the Duke Center has John Bewan, a Mankato native.
Well,
There.
and of course, that's why it's so great, probably, right? John Bewan.
And I'm wondering if, I think for me, what I found as both a reporter and doing this sort of thing is that the first thing you need to do is convince people that they have a story to tell. And if you ask one of our members who may be with us online, Pat Anderson, we needed to convince her that her year-long story through Europe during college years was an appropriate story to tell. And I think she's now told it to various groups. But that is the big thing. People either think that they've got a story that they don't really have, or they've got a story that they don't believe is a story.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And because that training that we did, you know, all that work that we did showed us that everyone has a story, and it's usually the people that say, "Oh, you don't want to hear my story." That those are the stories that are most important. Yeah, or just so wonderful. Maybe I should check the chat.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Oh, Jamil said John Bewan. Yeah. Okay. Other questions out there?
What about for a timeline as to when you're trying to put this together, or when you're trying to have some semblance of a full finished product?
Yes, so timeline. Well, if any of you have worked in a college environment, it's a little slow. There's there's a lot of, you know, I feel like there's a lot of administrators, you know, that you have to talk to get something like this going on. So what we're hoping is possibly in the summer, some faculty members who are interested in doing, and, you know, I mean, we're all interested in doing this. We've been talking about, can we do something in the summer, like a cohort of classes, where maybe there's 3 faculty members and they're each teaching their own class, but like the 3 classes are really working together. So maybe it's a writing class and a photography class and a film class, and maybe they're all working together to tell the same kind of story. You know, they're working with the same subjects, but then they're able to tell them in those different ways. So I think that would be the first logical thing that would happen, is some kind of cohort model where we're teaching a cohort of students some of these different pathways at the same time that stories can look like. We'll cross our fingers. I see the chat again. Maybe I'll look here again. And Gene viewing. So we got some viewing love here in the chat. Other questions? All right, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the questions. And if you have any ideas, you know, as you think more about this after we leave today, feel free to contact me at MSU. I would love to hear any ideas you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And we'll make sure that that we have some information, contact information. Is this yours too, Rachel? As you were talking about all these disciplines coming together, I thought, we've already got that. It's called journalism. That's kind of taken a side trip lately, just as I am up here wandering and getting my pieces of paper. But I want to thank you all for coming today. I know that next week we've got a presenter. It's going to be Bruce Gratz from Bethany Lutheran College. I was able to talk with Bruce quickly at the Kiwanis Camp Patterson event on Friday, and he confirmed that he is going to be coming in on next week for that. So we'll learn more about what's going on at Bethany Lutheran College, as intimated by Don Westfall, I believe it was last week. So I want to thank Betsy. I did get that right? For coming today, and congratulations to John Kind for his Grady Alderman birthday.
Some people say that I act more like I'm Kirk Cousins.
Oh, well, we will leave that to personal opinion. So, but once again, thank you all for coming today. And if you'd like to join us, we will be singing When Kiwanis Calls. When Kiwanis calls, when Kiwanis calls, let everyone stand up. When Kiwanis calls, when Kiwanis calls, let everyone raise their cups. Gather round the table, as long as we are able, we'll pledge to be our loyalty. When Kiwanis calls.
Do you want me to get it with the banner? Why don't you
Yeah, one of the banners.
I think there's too much light coming in this
Okay.
window. Let's try this.
Sorry, I have to get picture with every speaker right now. So. All right, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Rachel. I will be in touch because I've got all kinds of
That
ideas.
sounds great.
So who do you talk to if you got a story you want to tell?
Yeah, I could tell you had a story you wanted to tell.
But Mike told my story a little bit in an article a long time ago, but I had a group at MSU called.
It's interesting that it has a college assignment.
Yeah, I would definitely check
And
this out.
the thing she reveals right away, the woman who's being